In today's video, I am not going to wear a hat. I'm just kidding. Of course I'm gonna wear a hat. Today's video is actually about directing documentary and commercial sets. I'm gonna bring you on set. You're gonna be my pal as we go through this latest documentary I've been shooting, which kind of had some commercial elements and behind the scenes, a few different elements. I'm gonna talk about all of them, but I've been meeting a lot of you and you've been saying that you wanna hear more about directing, you wanna be on set. I know that's something I craved early in my career, and I always wanted to know how directors did it. And I made a lot of mistakes for a long time. So we're gonna go over that, but we wanna go through the whole process. You can skip ahead to that, but I wanna just break down the few things I'm gonna touch base on today. I'm gonna talk about interviews, how I actually come up with all the questions. We're gonna talk about scenes, how to build those and the importance of them and how I used to miss out on them. I wanna talk about my pre-production process, how I get my entire crew to understand what I want to accomplish. I'm gonna talk about how to choose your crew. This is very important to know who is the right person in the right role and how to identify that and how to empower them. Then also talk about getting good sound bites, your sound, and ultimately how to get the best shots, where the sun is, and how to know what the best lighting is and how to nail those every time, even if you're shooting in the middle of the day like we had to for so much of this project. So let's jump into things. The first place that we started was shooting our interview with our subject and kind of did the sandwich schedule that we teach in Art of Documentary. We started with a bit of B-roll when Braxton first arrived, then moved to the interview, and then the next few days was just more B-roll. But I kind of like starting with a little bit of B-roll because just sitting someone down in the hot seat with the lights on, the mics and everything, it can be intimidating. So I always get someone to do something that they're comfortable with. So when Braxton came to set, got him doing donuts. This was a great place to start. This is his element. He loves being on his bike. It's an extension of who he was. But before we did any of this on set, before I decided where to do the interview, I needed to come up with the questions. And I had done one quick call with Braxton ahead of this shoot and kind of knew a bit about his story. But then I began filling in the blanks. I don't like to know everything about the person's story up front, because then that takes away a bit of the spontaneity once you start interviewing them. So in this case, I just started writing the questions in my hotel room. I went through not only the story of Braxton's journey, which is important, you know, who, what, when, where, but then I tried to get some questions that we could get inside his mind. The why. Why does he want to go on this journey? This trip for him was him putting to rest this tragedy that happened in his life. And I don't want to give too much away, and I want Braxton to be able to say that in the final film, so I won't talk too much about that.
Maybe you should shut up.
But the questions that I came up with were to help him talk about that, give him a safe place. Talking about a safe place, when I choose my interviews, I try to find quiet places. This is really important because you don't want distraction. You want it to be a conversation that is uninterrupted as much as possible. The location we were shooting at, we were told was quiet, but it turned out there was a gym next door. So we kind of had to wait around for that gym to quiet down. Went over next door, asked them to, you know, stop dropping weights, and they eventually went home. I'm just gonna talk really quietly here. So when I bring this back to my computer, I can hear how echoey this room is. The next thing I'm looking for in my interviews is depth. Can I get a deep background so I can separate my subject from that background? You know all this already, or at least you should. I also like looking for control in the areas that I'm doing my interview. In this place, we did have control. We had cables over top. We were able to hang lights exactly where we needed to, move the space around. I will choose a location that is less cool looking if I have more control of it than finding a place that is super dynamic, but I have little control.
I remember my dad came and he was like, if you can land a 360, I'll buy you a new mountain bike or a new bicycle. And so I remember we were probably 6 years old, just back and forth hitting this jump, and Tanner got a 360.
The next thing I do is I study my questions the night before. The last thing I want to be doing is looking at my phone when I'm trying to talk to someone and give them eye contact, so that when I'm ready to do the interview, I'm fully engaged and I know where I want to go with the story. There's plenty of videos on my channel about doing interviews. You can check those out, but this is kind of my checklist that I go through. How you feeling right now?
My nerves are a little higher than I thought they'd be, but once we get on the bike, I think I'll mellow out a little bit for sure. There it is right there. That's the jump.
The second thing when I'm approaching one of these documentaries is scenes. So after we shot this first day, the second day I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just shooting cool, badass footage of Braxton on his bike. I wanted to make sure I gave space for actual documentary work. This was a big mistake I made early in my career, is I just was focusing on getting cool shots, cool shots, cool shots, cool shots, which can build a good reel and can get you some work and get you some notice. But if you want to be shooting documentary, you need to learn how to create an environment with your crew and your subject where they can live some life. And what I mean by that is that they actually go about their day, that you're not just interrupting every scene with your camera, that you're shooting what was traditionally called verite or direct cinema, where you're not interacting with your subject, but letting it play out. One of the best ways to do this is just get conversations going. Let them interact with other people so they don't feel the pressure to have to interact with you. When Braxton was approaching this jump that he was supposed to be doing, I didn't want him just standing up there looking around trying to figure it out. So we went and got another rider from the area to talk with him about this jump.
It's always windy up here no matter what.
Yeah.
But it should be good. Not too bad.
Hopefully this one goes good.
Yeah, man. Get it.
And this gave us a scene where there was at least some dynamic moments where they could be talking about it and processing it, and it didn't just feel like we made him stand on the edge of this jump and having to talk about what was going on. And this comes down to scheduling. I would say if you're starting off in documentary, it's good to have a plan, it's good to be assertive, maybe come up with about 70% of your day shot listed down, and then I would say leave 30% to spontaneity. There was this fun moment where Braxton was cheering on a couple of the younger riders who were trying to do a really crazy jump.
Oh!
And these are real life moments. And this played into when we were doing the car-to-car stuff with the team from Override. We had their Raptor with the crane arm. I didn't plan every shot, but I will talk about the shots I planned in just a sec. But there was times where I just said, hey guys, let's figure out this next shot on the fly. Let's feel this out. Let's see Braxton riding, and let's let the inspiration happen. He can spin around and come close to us, and we'll chase him down the hill for a bit. Come up here and he'll do a 180. It's kicking up dust, but he'll start on the far side and come towards us, so the dust is coming at us. So you're probably looking at all these shots here as us as a crew and wondering how we all knew what we wanted to get. Well, before we ever got to set, I built together a reel of shots that I liked from other car commercials and other dirt biking spots. And I sent this to the team at Override. I sent this to Nick Dean, who was helping produce this with me. And so everyone knew a bit of what was going on in my mind. And I needed that as well. This was my first time shooting with one of these trucks here with the camera crane. I'd never done this before, so I wanted to feel like I had a little bit of preparation leading into it, so I wasn't just showing up to set and going, well, I don't know. And a big part of your crew knowing what you want is your pre-production. For me, I'm always just using Milanote. It's super easy to share my ideas. I even built a Milanote to help my behind the scenes shooters. All this footage you're seeing here, I gave an explanation to the amazing cinematographer, Bentley, who was out there shooting our behind the scenes. So he knew exactly what I wanted to get. And he got some really great stuff. So I went onto my own website and I pulled off the video loop we have from my website. Gave him a reference here, some footage that we have from the loop on the Art of Documentary website, so we knew what has worked for us in the past. But then I just didn't send that to him. I gave him some notes here about what I actually liked, about a mix of wide and tight and shallow depth of field. Very obvious stuff, but at least gave him a reference point so he knew what we wanted to get on set. And I threw in a reference to Danny's film, his behind the scenes trailers. If you've ever seen those, Danny's done an incredible job showing the behind the scenes of his feature film, which I had the pleasure of watching in New York a couple weeks ago. But showing people references gives them a place to at least talk with you about, so they aren't just guessing. Take away the guessing with your team. And that's where also on Milanote, I built out this page here with just some driving references for my own sake. Talked about the dynamic moves to camera, and that's where I have this video here, which I can just embed right into Milanote, so that when I sent this to the team, they knew exactly what I was looking for. And I'm lucky enough to have been working with Nick Dean. A lot of these shots are from his projects, so I could go back to it and show everyone on set. And what's actually a really cool new feature in Milanote I found is when you go to add image, it will take the name of your folder and it will actually just suggest photos from that actual name. It's really quite intuitive. So I actually pulled all these images you see here on the left, these 4 images, I just pulled from the recommended panel. And our aerial guys, as you can see, they got really beautiful aerials of the surrounding area, because I find the texture of an environment is just as important as the characters. And in this case, this environment took the life of Braxton's cousin, and so it was kind of a character in the film. So I wanted to make sure we captured really stunning, evocative images of that location. I've been loving using Milanote. They are sponsoring today's video, but as you can see, I use it on a lot of my projects, whether it's the Tornado project, to even just pulling references from music. I use it for all sorts of pre-production. I even know our AOD community is using it extensively. It's just a great way to get your brain onto a website that you can share it with people. And I put a link below in the description if you want to try out a trial of Milanote yourself. Point 4. Your crew. How do you know how to choose your crew, and how do you empower them? For me, choosing your crew on documentary is so crucial. When I made my film about autism, one of the most important things wasn't just the talent I had on my crew, was are they good with people? And in this case, on this Braxton shoot, I needed people who had experience shooting motorcycles. That's why I worked with Nick Dean. I got people who knew more about this world than I did, and they were able to come around and help support my vision. The guys at Override were so fun to work with. They helped plan the shots. They could talk the language with Braxton because they had all rode motorcycles themselves.
We're just gonna maintain a speed through the whoops, and you just shred through the whoops at like a decent pace. So I'm gonna go ahead and start going before I call you off, so we meet there at the same time, and then just go ahead and shred on my mark.
I was the only person on set who'd never really ridden a dirt bike. I almost crashed into the car at one point when I tried to use an e-bike.
I missed it again. No, you didn't.
But regardless, I made sure to get on calls with everyone and communicate. Not talking to them tells them that you don't care about the work they're creating. It's just good to even have a 5-minute chat, look someone in the eye and say, hey, I know you're gonna create some amazing work. Here's some of the shots I like. Or if you don't know what you like, being honest about that, saying, hey, I'm not quite sure what I need. Could you take some photos at the beginning of the day and show me, and we can have a discussion? I think people appreciate honesty rather than just someone who's overconfident or ignores them. So we had a really important moment on the second day with this jump that Braxton was doing, and I don't give it away. But then we left the third day kind of for more car-to-car, more dynamic shooting, but also we wanted to use it to kind of let Braxton have a sigh of relief in this project and to shoot more moments where we could get their voice. And that's another thing I really want to stress when you're directing documentary is not neglecting audio. We used the Tentacle Sync setup. Bentley brought this onto set so we could always be recording audio. It's a little pack that has a memory card in it, so it's always recording and then it's time coded. So even when the camera isn't rolling, we were able to capture good audio. But I also made sure to get a good shotgun on my camera because I always prefer the audio from shotguns rather than lav mics. And we gave moments for Braxton and his brother Briggs to talk at the end of the whole trip.
Well, it's just like with anyone, they don't want you to keep living your life like you would if they were there.
Yeah, bro.
Like, just because he crashed, he wouldn't want us to stop riding because he crashed.
And this is an important thing I would say as a director is to actually capture people in real-time moments. If I tried to get him to process that on day 1 or day 2, I wouldn't have had the chance to actually know what he was thinking and feeling. The last point, this video is monstrous, but I'm glad you're sticking around because it's gonna help you, is just knowing where the sun was. If you know where the sun is, you can shoot in the middle of the day. That's one thing I learned on this project. I'm so adamant about magic hour, getting up early, getting those early morning shots, or waiting till the sun goes down. But there was times with just the timing, because we were 4 hours from any major city, that the crew sometimes had to leave a bit early to go on to other projects like the Override guys. So we could only be working with them in the morning and in the middle of the day. So in turn, we just really studied where the sun was going to be in this environment, and we made sure to always point the camera towards it. That's why on this ditch here, we had the option of putting the camera on the left side of the ditch or the right side, but we made sure to go on the right side because the sun was backlighting them. And this isn't just some bougie lighting preference. When you backlight people, it separates them from the background, because when you're front lighting them, they have the same amount of brightness as the environment around them, and it's tough to actually differentiate. So for us was always knowing where the sun was gonna be. Even planning our shots out the next day, these shots of Braxton going along the tops of these sand dunes. We planned this out, this wasn't a mistake. The guys from Override were talking about how the sun will peak up over those in the morning. So we made sure to get everyone out the crack of dawn. We were there, we knew the time when the sun was coming up. Getting apps like Sunseeker really help with this, or just knowing the trajectory of the sun can help. So I hope these tips helped. This is a longer, deeper dive, but I want you to improve as a director. If you want to learn more about storytelling, I talk a lot about it on this channel. Also, if you're part of Art of Documentary, we just announced that we're going to be funding projects. There's more about that, but giving funding for projects that are just starting out, giving funding for projects that are in post-production that just need a bit of money to help finish the film, or acquisition funding, where we're going to be helping distribute your films over on our YouTube channel. Get directing, get shooting, and go make some films. Even if it's a bad film, it's so important that you're making films and you're growing as a creative. Don't just hope it's gonna happen. Get out there and shoot something. I shot many, many, many bad documentaries until I started learning what was actually working, and that's part of the process. You gotta shoot a lot of shots in basketball to actually make a few. Thanks for watching this. I'll see you in the next one. I hate goodbyes.